Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Kashi, how are
Good.
you?
I think we're live, potentially.
Hi. I think we might be after a long and mysterious process.
Yeah. Well, just in case we are, thank you so much for joining us on Climate Fridays.
Thanks for having me. Ah, so good. It's awesome. I love the show. Big fan.
This is an awesome place where we get to discuss and empower young and active people in the environmental movement here in Australia. And I'm talking to you from Naarm, and I'd like to acknowledge the Boonwurrung, Boonwurrung, and the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. And also, on behalf of Climate Fridays, acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we all work and live, and acknowledge their connection to land, water, and culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Oh, and it's not working. Okay, cool. So close.
So nerve-wracking. You were nailing that, babe. You were totally owning that. Like, I think we're on.
How are you going? Anyway, we can
I'm good.
chat.
I'm actually, yeah. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. I'm living in the country, so I was so paranoid that it was my shitty internet connection, like bringing everything down,
No.
bringing you down single-handedly with the country Wi-Fi.
I can see the
Yeah,
beautiful like windows. They're almost like church windows in the
it is
background.
a church. It
Ah,
is a
there you
church.
go.
So I'm
No,
in a church.
oh
I'm
my
in an old church.
gosh.
It's pretty good. I know. I feel like I just want to sort of take it. I've got the worst possible background, the kitchen door, but it's pretty nice in here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So is
Are
this
you in
like
Melbs?
yeah, I'm in Melbourne. You're not, you don't go back to Violet Town at all, do you?
I
Or
live
is
there.
this where you
That's
are?
yep.
Oh my
That's where I
god.
am.
So
I
you really
moved
live
back.
there.
It's so beautiful. I'm just like, nah,
Um
I'm done. I'm having a break from the city.
I have a friend who's from Violet Town. Her name's
No
Rebecca
way.
Combring. Um and I think her mum's a cook or a chef at the pub or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And did you know that Nay Palm's two brothers are working at the pub as well as
Oh my
chefs as well.
god.
So it's like a very small world up here, Northeast
Yeah.
muso world.
Yeah.
Sorry, my shot is so shit. I feel bad about that, but it's because I have to have the phone. You're gonna have
Oh,
to
it's
see my
okay.
keyboard. Sorry.
Um
But yeah, it's really quite creative and amazing up here. Like you think, country is gonna be kind of a bit spooky and freaky and full of bogan,
yeah.
but it's not. It's full of artists and hippies, and
Yeah.
it's only 2 hours from Melbourne.
It's crazy because I remember this is like almost a decade ago because she and I were working in Deakin Library together, and she was like, "Oh, I'm from Violet Town." I'm like, I know it because
I know
of
that
obviously
name.
like Killing Heidi, but also she showed me it on a map, and I was like, "So where's the town?" And she's like, "That's it. Like
That's it.
that's where I'm
It's tiny.
from."
It's tiny. Yeah.
So that's so cool. So is that the church? Is that your place where you are now? So you
Mm-hmm.
live in an old church. Okay, I'm officially
Yeah, it's
extremely
pretty sick.
jealous of you.
Yeah, no, I know, but I can't take the credit. It's actually my mum's place. So really
uh,
cool living at home with the parents, really
oh,
cool,
if it makes
really
you feel
hip, really
better,
happening.
talking about weird places to live. I'm living in a converted horse stable,
Oh,
um,
amazing.
at the back of my parents' place. So there you
Oh,
go. We're
see,
united.
that's pretty much exactly what I'm doing. Except, they usually have this place as a venue and they Airbnb it and stuff, but now they can't
Ah,
because I'm clogging up the joint. But
love it. Yeah.
yeah, for now anyway.
Yeah. My parents were going to make this an Airbnb and then they remembered that they don't like people. Just at the
They
perfect
just
time when
like
I was needing
you.
a place. Yeah, they're like, oh my
Awesome.
gosh, we just realized like we're gonna have to clean after people and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's what Airbnb is. Like for
There
the
is a bit of that.
owners. And they're just
There is a
like,
bit of that.
how would you like to move in for a couple of years? I was like, done. Yeah.
That is exactly what happened here. We are matching. And I was like,
Yeah.
I need to do that. I need to like save for whatever's next in life. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Ella, I don't know if you've met Guthrow's at the top. He's just literally completed year 12.
Hi,
So
Ella.
Hey, I've seen your face there for the last half an hour, being very patient.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
and
Oh,
also
I hope
joined
it still
by
goes ahead.
Me
yeah,
too. Me too. It's looking dicey. Ooh.
yeah, looking very dicey. Also, Tamika Sadler's here as well from Seed
Hi,
Mob.
Tamika.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to
Yeah,
meet you
good.
as well.
I'm all sweaty and shiny. I've got the stress sweats.
Yeah,
Anyone
I do
else?
as well.
I'm
I
just
could
like, oh my
actually.
God.
There's a particular sweat smell that I'm like.
Yep.
"Ugh."
Yep.
Yeah, I smell like a
Yeah.
gym
But
sock.
apart from that, we're just going to be straight in the shower after this.
Yeah.
It's like a real gig.
So true.
But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was just watching the show before we started chatting, the last one, because I didn't catch it live. It was so good. You are such an awesome host, Keshi. So amazing.
Oh,
And just the
thank you.
conversations. Like I got teary, like watching that episode. Just the passion, and I just thought, oh my God, I don't even know. I don't know how I'm going to live up to that, but I'll
Oh
just
no, you're
try
going
and be
to be
honest and
brilliant.
give it a go.
I feel like my job is very easy because like all the school strikers are amazing, and
That's right.
I've become the biggest fangirl of every Seed Mob
Uh-huh.
person.
Yeah,
I've
that's
spoken
exactly
to.
what happened. I was just like, you're amazing. You're amazing. So it's really
Yeah.
on you guys. I'm just gonna, honestly provide the musical relief. I hope, but everyone just speaks so eloquently now, and he's doing such incredible work. And I mean, the generations that have just come since I started going to protests and getting sort of into activism back with my parents, it's just come so far. It's such a thing of beauty to see. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
Yay.
So true.
And spread so wide. It's not just for like the what am I trying to say, like the sort of alternative set or whatever. I feel like it's gone mainstream, and that's really good. That's so important. We were just like stinky 15-year-olds in our Stop Jabaluka t-shirts, and honestly, and that was like where it began and ended for so many people. Then they just left it by the wayside, and now it's just like you can't get away from it. You are just plugged in from day one. It's just so exciting. I love it.
Yeah. It's amazing.
So good. I love that. I love your enthusiasm as well. Like that's like my Friday pick me up right now. I'm like, this is a vibe.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm here for. That's my vibe. I'm a hype girl. I'm a hype girl for the environment
Love
today.
So
if we
good.
get on there.
If we get live
Yeah,
streamed.
hopefully.
Poor Barish. I feel like Barish will be having a meltdown. Shit.
No. Like wondering if we could record this and then put it up saying that it is a live stream, but just pretend.
Good point,
That's a good last
Yeah.
resort.
Hi everyone.
Good last
Hi.
resort.
Okay.
Hello.
So
Hey.
here's the plan. So we have changed the method a little bit. So we're just, instead of scheduling it, we're just going to hit go live now.
Okay.
And it should work off of this current crowdcast. So we don't need to move to a new one or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take you all off screen and have Ketchy up on her own. And it should just start like when we press go live now. So we might do it at like 6:30ish.
Okay.
But we'll let you know in the chat. So that's the plan. It should all link up properly now.
Okay.
In the chat.
We figured out what the problem was. So hopefully it's good now. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for being so patient. I feel terrible, but thank you everybody.
It's all good.
Yeah. Oh,
Guys,
good.
you guys are having fun anyways. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, having fun. I can't hit the go live button though. I just realised it's not letting me hit the go live button.
Oh,
Are you allowed to hit it, Laura? Crowdcast is fighting back. It's so evil. I think Ella might have frozen as well, potentially.
Oh no.
Oh no.
This is all good, guys. It's all a part of showbiz.
Exactly. You just got to roll with it.
Just got to roll with it. I've got so many bad 90s songs stuck in my head. So bad. Like, yeah. I'm trying to fight them off with like other 90s songs that don't sound the same. But I just end up, I've got to try not to sing it out loud.
Just not leaving.
Okay, everyone,
wait, hang on.
I know I left you on a cliffhanger.
I think we just got, my friends just said, I think you're live. Hey, y'all are live on YouTube right now. Hello
Okay.
from people watching on YouTube.
We're just doing YouTube. We're just doing YouTube now.
Okay.
So is that playing? Awesome. All right.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Catherine. And thank you to all of you who are tuning in on YouTube for this week. My name is Ketchy Nelly, and we are back with Climate Fridays. And of course, this is live, as you can tell, because we're dealing with some technical difficulties. If this is your first time here, Climate Fridays is a brilliant initiative brought to you by Green Music Australia and School Striker for Climate to empower you and engage you in climate activism. Before we begin, I'm speaking to you from Naarm and would like to pay my respects to the Boonwurrung, Boonwurrung and the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nations. And on behalf of Climate Fridays, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we all live and work and recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that this land always was never ceded and always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Hope you're doing well on this Friday. It's a really interesting time. In 2 sleeps, we'll be entering into NAIDOC week, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit more. But before that, we will be having an amazing performance brought to you by Ella Hooper. She's currently in a church of all places, but she's going to be bringing us some really gorgeous music, and we're going to talk a bit about the way activism has changed over the years as well. We're seeing so many people from the younger generations come through, and it's really amazing to see that change that's happening from the generations who will probably live long enough to see those effects of climate activism and all the efforts that we're putting into maintaining this land which we really love. We'll also be talking to a school striker for climate, of course, this week, who has not only been a part of this cool movement, but has finished Year 12, which is really exciting. So things to really engage with and celebrate, as well as Tamika Sadler from Seed Mob, an amazing organisation, youth-driven, and really active in bringing the power back to First Nations people and the true custodians of this land, who have kept this land green and lush for centuries as the oldest living as the oldest living community of people. We're going to do something a little bit different this week. We're going to be chatting first and listening to music later. So I would like to introduce and congratulate Guthrie Taylor-Johnson, School Striker for Climate, and invite him in for the chat. How are you going?
Hello. Yeah.
Thank you so much for letting us know that we were live streaming. I think we would have just been stuck in a random conversation. But this is also
that goes to our #1 fan, Kayla Hill. Let me know on Instagram you've been live for 15 minutes, and it's a bit of a panic, but we'll roll with it.
So you've just finished high school. You're about to enter into the next phase of life. I wanted to ask you before we get things rolling, what was your first step into activism, and why is activism really important to you, especially around the Australian environment?
I mean, it depends. My first sort of experience with activism, it depends on how you define it, because I've always sort of been raised in an environment that's had a lot of politics involved in it, a lot of discussion on rights, on freedom, on activism. My father works in the union and my mother's a writer, so there's a lot of discussion on social issues as well. And I went to Stop Adani rallies before it was where was it? I think I went to in Australia we used to have Equinor that wanted to drill in the Bight, and before they were Equinor they were Statoil. So I go back a fairly long ways for someone who only got involved in School Strike for Climate early last year, really.
Yeah.
And since then I've been involved with a lot of different projects on the side. in South Australia. We're working on a campaign right now to try to discredit Santos, which is a gas company. Obviously, gas can be as bad as coal, and it's not the sort of future that we want when it comes to energy generation and exports. So I've been working on that. But I've been sort of working in the space for a while now, just little bits at a time, until I really took off at the beginning of year 11, at the beginning of 2019. I guess the reason why activism was so important for me is because for me, I'm quite a privileged person. I live in a good area. I'm fairly well off compared to some. I don't see the extent of climate change. I'm not on the front lines like others, and I don't have to deal with racism, sexism, or homophobia to the same extent as a lot of people would. So for me, activism allows me to use my privilege and my voice and give it to people who have a lot more to say and a lot more right to say, because they are often more oppressed in this space, not in the activist space, but just in society in general. So being able to connect, communicate, and elevate the voices of these people has been an incredibly inspiring and motivating it's been a drive for me. It's been amazing to work with these people and to hear from them and let them take over the mic.
Yeah, and speaking of taking over the mic, Tamika Sadler from Seed Mob is also joining us. Tamika, it's so great to have you back for this new season of Climate Fridays. This in 2 sleeps, really, we're going to be going into NAIDOC Week, and the theme for NAIDOC Week this year is Always Was, Always Will Be. And I wanted to ask you what that means for you, and what the initiative of NAIDOC means for you as well.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for having me on as well. Before I do, keep going as well, want to acknowledge, all the mob that are out there listening, to Climate Fridays, and acknowledge the land that I'm on as well, the Gubbi Gubbi and Kabi Kabi people. So yeah, NAIDOC is coming up in 2 days, less than 2 days it feels like. So it's, the Black Christmas for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. Excuse my son in the background as well. He's just trying to reach for a boob, a quick top up, but that's okay. Got to do these things on the run anyway. But I think this year's theme, Always Was, Always Will Be, is.
And I think we've lost Tamika. I don't know what's going on with this audio this week. Real big apologies.
Is that my cue to come back?
There we go. You're back, Tamika. Sorry. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, this year's theme, Always Was, Always Will Be, is such an important theme, especially in the current climate that we are in. In 2020, we've got climate change happening at a rapid rate. First Nations people and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities are first and worst impacted. And, I think by having this year's theme really reflect that, we are all standing and living on Aboriginal land and or Torres Strait Islander, land. It's really important to be able to take a step back and really, understand how our mob has been looking after country for over 60,000 years. And, now we're in 2020 and our world is dying at a rapid rate. And, it's so sad and disheartening, because what's the future going to look like for the next generation, and how are they going to be able to practice their culture as well?
Yeah. It's pretty amazing, just like looking now at the way, especially like with School Striker and younger generations. One of the big things and push of NAIDOC Week was to encourage people like colonizers of this land to understand the true history of First Nations. And even just reading about some things recently, it's only been recent that in schools that they've taught the true history of this land and haven't begun the story of Australia from when Europeans have settled it. How does it feel now for you seeing School Striker for Climate, for example, with lots of young Australians and non-Indigenous people wanting to be allies and seeing the debt they owe as like allies to First Nations people?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think this, yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. This is
Having a
live.
tantrum over country spread of all things. But, you know, I think it's so important that, you know, we've got the mob from School Strike for Climate that are really, you know, backing, you know, Seed Mob and other Indigenous-led organisations around, you know, environmental campaigning. And, you know, I think as well we've seen this year the uproar of Black Lives Matter and the power of social media. And I think it's so important that, you know, we have our allies backing us all the way and that they're, you know, walking with us during these confronting times because, you know, with the government that we do have at the moment as well, you know, it's really, I guess, what's the word? You know, just you can never predict what's going to happen in the future. And, you know, like a year from now, who knows what is going to happen to our country and, you know, how are we going to continue to sustain it with the current technologies that we do have as well.
Yeah, definitely like an interesting point, and we're at a really interesting time politically. And I know I said I probably wasn't going to bring this up, but what's happening in America is quite scary at the moment, and it has kind of brought forth a lot of what happened in America, kind of brought forth a lot of Black Lives Matter to light. In Australia, when we refer to a Black, I guess it's split between the two communities of like First Nations and Africans. But I find it really interesting as somebody who grew up with parents who didn't protest. It's really amazing to see young people now of colour protesting and really taking the action further. I mean, I feel like a lot of us understand that we're even just being born and existing is a political statement, but it's really powerful to see young people going back to their community and showing them the ways in which they can really take active action against things that they think are unfair and unjust in this country. Yeah, how do you feel about, like, what is it like for you with Seed Mob? Because earlier this year you were going to community to encourage people to vote, much like what we're seeing happening in the States. Can you tell us a little bit more about that experience for you?
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, because of COVID and that sort of thing, that really put a halt in, you know, the work that we were doing out in communities. And so, you know, we've had to go digital with a lot of the work that we were doing. But some of my colleagues, you know, they were able to get to the Northern Territory in time before, you know, some of the lockdowns were put in place. And, you know, they travelled from community to community, you know, getting to talk with mob and talk with the elders and talk about what they want to see for their future in their communities as well. And, you know, really be able to provide that education about Origin's plans to frack the Northern Territory because, you know, there is a lot of information out there, and unfortunately with these big energy providers as well, there's a lot of miscommunication and misinformation that's given to our mob too. So, you know, it was really pivotal in being able to, you know, educate our mob about, you know, the potential impacts that it's going to have as well on community. And, you know, we had our team go around to community for the last 6 weeks in the lead up to the Northern Territory elections to really have their voices amplified and, you know, really have their vision of what they want to see in their communities, you know, being able to be put into place. But with that as well, you know, there is a lot of people as well that, you know, are still very misinformed about voting and elections and things like that. So, you know, it was a lot of hard work by the C team, but, you know, we did a really good job. And I think, you know, for the young people in the communities to see that as well, and for them to potentially be the first time voting as well, you know, that's a leadership experience in itself, and that's going to empower them and inspire them to continue to keep that grassroots movement alive, really.
Yeah. Guthrie, you're a young person. Well, you're actually a young adult, about to enter into full-blown adulthood now that you're finished with high school. But I'd like to ask you, like, what do you hope to see in the future? Like, if you wanted to imagine Australia even just 5 years from now, what are the things that you would like to see happen?
I would love to see some key targets being set and met. One of them being 100% renewable energy powered, and also having renewable energy exports by 2030. It's becoming increasingly harder to do, though, because there just aren't people who are taking that step, taking the lead, and having these discussions in Parliament, in the government, in the community. And I think a key aspect is definitely focusing on gas, because there's still a lot of myths around whether or not it's a transition fuel, whether it's really as bad as coal, whether it's essential to back up renewable energies. It's not. There's so much potential in renewable energy, and it's being slandered by these lobbyists who are really trying to prop up this dying industry, and trying to create confusion and distrust. Also, hello, Ella.
Hello. Sorry to keep you waiting.
That is
fashionably late.
Catherine, we were talking about misinformation, and a lot of people nowadays turn to the internet for their information. How do you've spent a year having to literally learn online or through distant learning because of the pandemic, but how do you think young people can help combat that kind of false information online by what actions have you guys been doing to kind of help sway people online towards what's really happening and what the important issues are?
I think being self-informed is really important. You don't just want to be sharing articles that are at the top of your feed because they look like they're good to click on. You want to be approaching all issues with a critical mindset. How credible is this? How important is it for other people to see it and learn about it? I always trust information that comes from credible news sources. The Guardian's pretty good. The Conversation's also quite nice. But it's always good to look at some of the less credible news sources to sort of understand where it is that they aren't being credible, so you can see it in other news sources. And I think the fake news sort of aspect of journalism nowadays is really hitting hard when it comes to propaganda, even in its traditional sense, which is just having a bias. There's definitely a lot of information out there that is trying to sway you on one side, and it's really up to you on whether you want to be swayed by that side and whether it's information that you can trust. Certainly when it comes to online learning, it hasn't been easy, but I've learned so much about the world we live in and the society just through the increase in people who've been online, and the increase of sharing and people taking the time out of a usually busy life to learn about a lot of things that they didn't have time for before. I've learned so much about gas and how awful it can really be. I've learned a lot about what First Nations people face, and the injustices that are seen at a systemic level. And I've been keeping up with the election too, so I'm learning a bit more about some of the flaws that other countries have when it comes to their judicial and executive system. But yes, definitely stay informed. Challenge everything you read with a critical mindset, and really look for things that are informative and trustworthy.
Yeah, and talking about like that legacy of trustworthiness, Tamika, something that you brought up is First Nations people have been practicing the way of the land for, I know that we acknowledge that 65,000 plus years of being on the land, but I think more recent years it's come to show like hundreds of thousands of years that First Nations have been caring for the land in which we live on, and the techniques that they're using have also been highlighted, especially through the book Dark Emu that came out a couple of years back. Are these practices, do you feel like do you get frustrated with how much you need to prove when it comes to taking care of the land?
Yeah, definitely. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were the first scientists of this land. It's embedded in our identity, and for Uncle Bruce Pascoe to write Dark Emu and have that published, and then have a whole heap of white critiques really, judge the book about Indigenous practices is so disheartening because, we've been here for thousands of years, and what more evidence does white Australia need to understand that we've been caring for country within our cultural identity for thousands of years? And, it goes to show that Aboriginal women were the first people to bake bread. And, it's, I guess, frustrating as well with the fires that happened earlier on this year that, for the rest of Australia, it was really a wake-up call for them to be like, oh, okay, we have to listen to traditional owners and, Aboriginal perspective and incorporate, fire management. And these are things that should have been implemented years and years ago to prevent, some of the environmental disasters that we are seeing in this current day.
Yeah. Ella Hooper, this is a little bit different, but a lot of your career has been spent in a place where you can be highly critiqued, but you've also been somebody that has protested since a really young age. What do you think it takes for people to protest? Is it an easy step, or do you have to really, really, I guess, have the guts to stand up for things?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Also, I've got an echo. Do I have an echo to you?
No, you're all fine here.
Yeah, I think it can be scary, and I won't lie. Being in the public eye is challenging sometimes. I was very, very young when I started, so I had a bit of, I would definitely suffer more than on one occasion from foot in mouth disease. Blurting things out and maybe not really thinking them through, but. I think I'd still rather run the risk of getting something wrong and apologizing or saying, oh, look, I don't know, I need to more learn about that, than just being silent and just towing the party line of trying to please everybody all the time. Then you end up having, as an artist, I think that's really unconscionable, because artists are here to tell stories and communicate, and possibly arguments as well, to sell their arguments and to raise things and explore things and pass them apart a bit more to make other people think, and basically passing on these messages or these questionings. Anyway, that's always been really important to me, more so than getting it right, more so than being eloquent. I still have a lot to learn, and I'm still far from eloquent. When I talk about this stuff, I get nervous. I get nervous because I feel it's very important. I get nervous because I don't want to stuff something that's of cultural importance up, or even mispronounce something. I think we all get a bit sweaty palms still. But as a good ally, I know that I have to push through that. I have to push through that to be an example of a good ally that takes that chance and, might sometimes not get it right, but keeps showing up to sort of be vulnerable in that way and be brave in that way. Because, if that's the bravest thing I can do as a privileged white, cis, straight, female rock musician, then I better bloody do it, because that is a lot of privilege. That is a privilege on privilege on privilege on privilege. I do what I love for a living. That's insane. I am the 1%. So it's very important to me that I listen and learn and keep showing up and take direction. And I hope that answered the question.
Yeah.
But is it hard? Yes. It's not just easy, and I don't do it without getting nervous, and I don't do it with full confidence, and I don't do it without thinking, but I still do it.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. And I think that's a fear that a lot of people, even myself, have, is saying the wrong thing. But I think if you have that openness to learn, I think that kind of is that overruling thing, isn't it? Earlier, I'm not quite sure if we were live streaming at that point, but you were talking about how you were protesting when you were younger, and how protests has changed quite dramatically, I guess, with this younger generation. But I wanted to find out a bit more from your perspective, how you've seen activism evolve.
Well, yeah, I don't know if this went to air, but I was having a bit of a fangirl at these incredible young people, at them, but I was also watching last week's whole episode and session, and it struck me. I also have a young cousin, Nina, shout out Nina if you're watching, who's really involved on the school side of things down in Melbourne, and she's only just hit high school. And the organisation of it impresses me. The thoroughness impresses me. The way you were just talking, Guthrie, as well, was just so, talking about being a critical thinker and talking about not just posting the top article that comes along. I was just like, I have to. I flashed back to when we were, sorry, did I get your name wrong? I'm sorry. When we were kids and we were maybe just sort of a bit more not as detail oriented and maybe didn't have the access to, this is pre-internet. So the way that these several movements have used the internet so brilliantly to get more detail, become, you know, these incredible self-educating tribes, machines, is just incredible. And to organize and to do protest on the scale, also on the scale has changed. As I was saying before, it's pretty much gone mainstream, which I think is really fantastic and important. And back in my day, we may have gotten a little bit picked on or teased or been considered, you know, the sort of the alternative kids or the hippie kids or the weirdos or whatever for having our sort of environmental leanings out in the open and our political leanings out in the open, and certainly our sort of land rights and Indigenous stuff. And Jabiluka was the big one when I was growing up, and it sort of has so many, still resonates today in all of the Indigenous, you know, I want to say a really rude word that goes on, disenfranchising First Nations people, because that for me is the crux. It basically can still all be boiled down to respect. And if we are not respecting First Nations people and their, as we said, like eons of wisdom and practice and the first scientists, I mean, that is just, it's just a respect issue, because why wouldn't we turn our heads and, you know, I just think there's a terrible habit in white Western culture of being such know-it-alls, but we're actually such Johnny-come-latelys. We're just like, oh, we're new on the scene, but we're the authority. It's like, no, you're not. Like, that is just such a flawed perspective to think and always assume that these people that are unfortunately running our societies, running our, you know, country in a legal way, shall we say, currently proclaim themselves to be the authority without a shadow of a doubt, when they're clearly not. We actually have all the proof and evidence we need to completely say you are not the authority. These people have incredible knowledge, and I know that I'm rambling here, but like cultural burning is one example where it's just gobsmacking. I come from a country area, I'm here in the country right now, where the CFA is like the cornerstone of the community, because fires are very real. I've grown up with bushfires. I grew up in a forest. Like, the fire would completely take out our house if, you know, we did get one very, very close one time. But so, yeah, I mean, I know it's touched everybody this year and last year more than any time before, but it's something I've also grown up with. Bushfires are very real and very scary when you live in a log cabin in the bush. But to think that, you know, the CFA, who are such a big part of our community, my mum's partner actually was the captain of the CFA here for a year, if they could just, you know, go and reach out to local mob and say, okay, teach us about cultural burning and learn, just take the learner's role, be respectful, drop the knee, drop the hat and say, you guys have, you know, there's an opportunity there. And I mean, I don't know where that stands with always making it Indigenous people's job to educate us, and how stupid that is and tiring that is. And we should be asking for that in a way that, you know, benefits them as well. But yeah, there's just so many opportunities. And if I could sum up this diatribe, it's about respect, and we need to get on the respect train and the advice.
Yeah. I think you're 100% right. And I feel like we're all feeling, I can see heads nodding between the rest of us here. We are kind of reaching the end of the conversation. And I was just wondering, Guthrie, is there anything that you would like to leave us with before Ella Hooper jumps into her performance as a school striker?
Look, you guys have said some amazing stuff that I couldn't disagree with if I tried. You're both amazing speakers. You're both full of passion, and you're both just really connecting, I think, with the people who are watching here, because you're connecting with me. And there's a lot that you've said that I feel I wouldn't be able to add on. But I guess hope is just the rhetoric that we need to keep in mind going forward with anything. You know, nothing's going to change if we all give up. So we have to have hope. We have to have hope that American situation is going to get a lot better. We have to have hope that in Australia, we're waking up to some of the crazy stuff that's happening here, and we're going to fight for a better future here. We have to have hope that there's going to be people in the future who are going to come to power. it might be this generation, it might be the one to come, who are going to fight for the rights that everyone's passionate and talking about on this episode of Climate Live. We've got to hope that social justice is going to be seen. It's something that I'm certainly very hopeful for, and it's the reason I'm fighting, because I have so much faith in what we can all do together if we all band together and fight for the things we share in common. So I'd be keeping that in mind.
That's a really beautiful sentiment. Thank you so much, Guthrie Taylor-Johnson from School Striker for Climate.
Thank you.
Tamika Sadler, you said some really amazing things, and I know, like Alice said, it is not, I feel as colonizers, it's not our place to turn around and say, you need to do all the work to teach us how to be better. But it is also, NAIDOC Week is kicking off on Sunday, and the theme for this year is always was, always will be. And I was wondering, before Ella finishes off this beautiful night with her music, is there anything that we need to be looking out for or really reach into in the coming days?
Yeah, definitely. I strongly encourage everyone that's, tuning in here tonight to really get involved in NAIDOC celebrations next week and really understand the importance of what NAIDOC means to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and communities. And, with COVID restrictions uplifting, there are some community events that are happening around the country. So I really strongly encourage you to, get out there, get to know our mob, speak with our elders, and, really get into the spirit of, this year's theme always was and always will be. As well, on top of that, we've got Christmas coming around the corner, and, I think it's so important that, our allies not just showing up to protest and, being the voice to guide up, to help us, push through the fire. But it's so important that, we're supporting a Black economy as well, that, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses are starting to really amplify in this space around Australia. And, if that's one thing I can really encourage is, during NAIDOC week as well, really be proud of our history and our culture. And, I do urge you guys to really support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses and clothing and wear those things with pride as well.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Tamika Sadler from Seed. It's been a really beautiful chat, and we made it through all the technical issues of this Friday. So I'd like to say thank you to you both so much for keeping the conversation strong and going, and really empowering the rest of us to want to do better and take care of this land. We're going to finish up this Friday with Ella Hooper performing a song to take us into the rest of the weekend. I love Climate Fridays, and it's so amazing to have you be a part of this, Ella. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to let you do your thing and bask in your musical magic.
Can I just thank you so much for having me and to say what an awesome job. You're an amazing host, and I know you had to do a lot of fancy footwork then with our technical difficulties, and that is like my idea of hell on a stick, and you did such a great job. So a big round of applause for Kenji. That's a professional right there. Okay, quick baby sound check. I'm not used to playing with headphones on, so we'll see how this goes. Welcome to my church, everybody. It's thoroughly deconsecrated. It's not religious anymore at all. But it still is a church. So the acoustics should be something, either really, really good or really, really bad. Might be a little too boomy. And this is a song I wrote about growing up in the country. It's kind of a country tune, as lots of my new songs are, because I'm owning and claiming my country roots. And this song is actually about this very building and the fact that in our little town, in Violet Town, we fly the rainbow flag and the Indigenous flag at the cop shop, and the Australian flag, just to keep everybody happy. But little towns aren't always what you expect. Sometimes they can be very inclusive, and on this new record I've got a lot of elders of mine and friends and people from all different who identify in all sorts of different ways. And so it's a little bit of an ode to inclusivity, coming in a slightly weird religious sounding package, but it ain't. I just happen to live in a church. Okay. It's called Small Town Temple. small town temple where I come from is held together by feel and pain. Cracks in the floorboards and window panes make a down-home version of glass that's stained. She ain't nothing fancy, a little blip on the map. Humble is her mystery that keeps me going, coming on back. I calibrate my compass to her siren song, and it keeps me rooted to the ground. No matter where I go, I know where I come from. This village on the outskirts of town, where I feel a magic, the granite's buzzing, swaying gums. Honeysuckle hanging in the town where I come from. Church of no religion, where all are welcome, all are one. This elegy far-reaching to the small town temple where I belong. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much. That was so inspiring listening to everybody speak.
That was amazing. Yeah. What? I don't know if you can hear me screaming, yes, down the mic, but
get on those backing vocals. I need you on those backing vocals. Next time.
I will be there in a heartbeat. Thank you so much.
I heard you singing Thirsty Merc at the start of the show when you thought no one could hear. And it was
my secret's out.
We all love a bit of Thirsty Merc.
Thank you so much, Ella, for being a part of this beautiful initiative by Green Music Australia and School Striker for Climate, and also for Seed Mob for bringing so much knowledge and love and enthusiasm to this event. I keep saying event because I feel like everyone's privately in my lounge room having a chat, playing some music, having a great time on this beautiful Climate Fridays. Looking forward to the new album. That song was absolutely gorgeous. And I really love that out of this conversation that the two really big key things that came out, as you noted, it really does come down to respect. And I think the thing that fuels us the most is the hope for a bigger and a brighter future. So let's say on behalf of Ella and myself and everyone that joined us tonight, Guthrie Taylor-Johnson and Tamika Sadler from Seed Mob, thank you so much for tuning in, and we can't wait to be back next week for Climate Fridays. Have a beautiful week. And hopefully the stream